Just joining us, welcome on board this morning. I hope you can... Just tried that front connection and that's all fine. Welcome on board. Is that any better?
It's plugged in here.
Maybe just unplug it and put it back in just in case it's missing. Yeah, channel 1 is on 8 and audio level channel 2 is on just over 8. Is there anywhere I can check to see if the connection is okay? You know, where there is another connector. Did you hear me at all this morning on the ride so far? Just checking them all. But have you been able to hear me at all on the ride, or is it just gone?
Can I talk now?
Hello everybody and welcome to WildEarth. And we have the quarantine mail on your screen right now. Did you pick anything up then? What did you change?
I flicked the switch at the back, yeah.
There's a switch that was flicked over at the back on the camera. So apologies everybody, apparently you weren't able to hear me as we were driving, and it looks like there was a switch that was just flicked on the camera at the back that I think discerns whether it's the back mic or the front mic that is picking up. But welcome on board, and we have the quarantine mail here for you this morning. In the tambuchi tree where he had his bushbuck kill, and it looks like he's actually trying to feed from the other side from what he was yesterday. I don't think he's actually moved it any higher up in the tree. It's still in the fork of the tree where he had it, but he's trying to feed from it from the back side rather than the other side. So he's obviously taking advantage of the cool morning to carry on feeding. I doubt that bushbuck is going to last much longer. I think there was quite a lot of it gone already.
Yeah, I just switched it over to that. I'm not sure why there's on the other one.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Do you need me to move?
Oh, no, it should be alright.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I'll just pull it. Oh. You've just be careful of that stump there, yeah. Morning. Sorry for bumping you, I didn't realise someone was here. Yeah, you too. So apparently there's a hyena pulled in. Okay, so we are now the only vehicle here, so just so we don't disturb the guest experience, I do tend to talk a little bit lower when there's another vehicle in, reciting with us. But now that they've pulled out, I'm just waiting for them to move out completely. Just again, so there's not too many vehicles moving around the animals. So just so we don't disturb the animals with a lot of vehicle movement. And he said he could see a hyena.
I can see it.
Can you? Whereabouts is it?
Just up there.
Oh, is it actually up here? Oh, okay.
Just at the top of the bank.
Just at the top of the bank. Oh, yes! Let's just see. Hyena hoping for some scraps. It doesn't take them long here. They've got a really good sense of smell. What a young hyena. You can see the fur, it's still quite long. And doesn't look like there's any battle scars on the hyena as yet. And they're very patient. They have all the time in the world, but I'll tell you something, as soon as a piece of meat drops, that hyena will be in there like a shot. It won't miss a trick. Those big ears also acting like radar dishes, and it's uncanny. The smallest of bits of meat can fall and they'll hear it. So for those of you who may just be joining us, apologies for you not being able to hear us just at the start of drive, but welcome on board. So we are back with the quarantine male leopard, who's in a tree, in the tambuchi tree, actually just behind old final control for WildEarth. So we're actually just the other side of the drainage line. They've opened it up and put a little pan at the back here. So we actually heard of the kill yesterday. It could have been a day or so old. There doesn't seem to be much left. We're going to go back around to see if we can get a nice view of the leopard now the other vehicle has moved. But it was interesting just to see the hyena. So let's just go back around to where the leopard is, and we'll see if we can get a nice shot of him for you through the trees. You can see the drainage line just to the right there. So it was yesterday afternoon we heard about the carcass. I think it was found slightly earlier in the day. And it is a bushbuck apparently, but we're not sure what size bushbuck. Okay, hopefully we're going to be able to see him straight through those trees there. Yeah, you can see there's very little meat left on that. But he is still determined to get as much meat from that carcass as he possibly can. And again, you can see using the side or the cheek teeth, the carnassial shearing pair, a molar and a premolar, and they rub against each other to keep the teeth sharp, and it literally just helps to shear the meat from the bone, and that's why he keeps turning his cheek so he can actually chew as much as he can off the bone with those teeth. And we did manage to get a nice view of him, and some of you might be able to see the pictures from yesterday, and we had a clear view and we could quite easily see the black triangles underneath the eyes and the triangle, the spots that actually make a triangle at the corner of each eye, which shows that it is the quarantine male, and he is, oh, there we go. I wonder how long it's going to take before that hyena comes in. There we go. I can hear him move. Wow. Okay, this one is quite a quite a juvenile, because usually they would be on it like a shot. I think that hyena might actually be snoozing a little bit too deep. That really is amazing. I really thought I could hear the hyena coming in to come and claim that piece of meat that dropped. Just see if I can move back a little bit while it's coming down the tree. Oh, there we go. I wouldn't risk it. You've got a hyena. But this, of course, is going to be learning curves for him. Depends on how often he has come into contact with a hyena. Although it isn't an adult hyena by the looks of it, it is a sub-adult. So he actually might be a little bit larger than it is. I'm just going to try and move back just that little bit so we're not hindered by that bush. Just hope we're going to get a nice clear view. Okay. The hyena's got its head up. maybe deciding that the quarantine male is probably just a little bit too much of a match for it. Wow, that is amazing. The hyena's actually just put its head down, carried on snoozing, so yeah, I think it'd be nice to see the face and just to confirm that, but I think that is probably the reason why this hyena hasn't run in and tried to chase him off the meat. Hi Adam in Mississippi, welcome on board this morning. Good to have you with us this morning. And Adam wanting to know, will the carcass be left in the tree once the leopard's finished with it? And it will. And it will decompose, and if there's still a little bit of flesh, it will dry out and it may stay up in the tree until that decomposes, and then the bones will drop on the floor. But if there's very little flesh or skin left, then the bones will drop on the floor a lot sooner. And then you'll get scavengers like the hyena coming through, picking up the bone and eating it. But other animals utilise the bone as well. Porcupines, they will chew bone. Giraffes, they will chew bone to try and get the calcium and the phosphorus and supplement their diet. Even kudu will chew bone. And we have seen the odd leopard tortoise around here as well. They'll make use of bone and even hyena dung. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hyena is getting up. Leopard is looking at the hyena. So that viewing platform is the platform just at the back of Final Control, or the old Final Control. Leopard is flicking his tail, but yeah, this is definitely a youngster. I can see the height of it as well. It's probably about a 3-4 year old, something like that. It's not a seasoned adult yet, so I think that's why it is staying back. It's not sure of its own strength. Hi Joanne, welcome on board from Arizona. Joanne interested in what the bird is that's calling it. Dit, 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 dit. And I think that is the bird that you are talking about. And I want to say it's one of the calls, quite possibly of the tawny-flanked prinia, but it's one of those. It's literally on the tip of my memory. So if anybody is listening, that could just clarify for me. But it does sound like the tawny-flanked prinia. Now, some of those calls can sound very, very similar. The cisticolas as well. The tawny-flanked prinia has a number of different calls. It's just a vague recollection. Say, about 3 years I haven't heard it. But they can go a little bit more rapidly as well. And some birds do have regional variation. So the southern bobo, which you don't tend to hear here too much, will actually have slightly different calls in one area to another area. So they almost have a slightly different dialect. I can hear the squirrel calling now. I wonder if the squirrel's the other side of where we are and seeing these two predators. So I can hear the alarm call of the ghost bird actually. That I think he's that. There he is. Yeah. Oh, I think he did actually just poke his head out. The grey-headed bushshrike, known as the ghost bird, giving the alarm call. I'm wondering if you can just pan around quickly just so I can show everybody the grey-headed bushshrike so they know what bird to maybe look out for. Keep an eye on the leopard and the hyena. Yeah, I can hear that squirrel coming closer, so I think it's the squirrel calling for these guys. The grey-headed bushshrike is this one here. So this was the one that was just giving an alarm call, but it might just have been that little bit too faint to hear. What was that? My whistle's gone again this morning. Oh, leopard's turn, just starting to clean himself now. But yeah, so that's the bird that I just saw bobbing around there. And as I say, I'm pretty sure it was the tawny flanked prinia that was calling in the tree just above our heads. But I am willing to be corrected on that one. If anybody has any advances on that. And the hardy dart ibis flying over now as well. Now unfortunately we can't get around the other side of the leopard, so we'll be sitting actually in the camp on the deck, which would be fantastic if we were staying there. Just wondering if we can't just move forward slightly. Let's try and get a nice view. Just at the base of the tree there. Well, you know, that to contend with, possibly. Let's see if we can't get the other side of the tree. Can you see him any better there? Now you can see, now we've been sat here for a little while. He is just not fussed by our presence at all. But as I say, we try not to move too much around the animals once we have a sighting, and just let them do their own thing. Just keeping the eye on that hyena. Hello, beautiful boy. Sure, he's got beautiful eyes. Morning to you, Tim. Good to hear from you this morning, Tim. Tim would like to know, do all the rivers and streams keep water in them all year round? And this is actually an old riverbed, and it only gets water in it when we've had very heavy rain, and it will flow maybe for a month or two if we do have heavy rain. But I think this summer's been a little bit dry, because there's a lot of areas that would normally have a lot of water at this point, and there's a lot of areas that are fairly dry. Even the dams do have water in it, but not as much as what they can have after heavy rains. So I think maybe it has been a little bit dry this year. But I've seen the Milwati, which is the main river that runs through here. I have seen that flowing just after we had the cyclone in 2012, and that was just incredible to see. It was flowing and it was very wide. So they don't hold water all year round. But when that rain comes, my word, you know about it. So this is part of the Milwati that we're sitting on right now, and it is actually pretty wide, probably a good 60 meters wide, I think. So he still has a little bit of meat up there, but obviously not wanting to waste a single piece. That's why he came down the tree to collect that little bit that dropped, because he knows that that bit is more vulnerable on the ground than the bit in the tree. And that is why they do hide their kills in trees, so that the hyenas can't get to them very easily, and they can protect them from other leopards potentially, and even lions. And don't be fooled into thinking lions cannot climb trees. They can. I think they just prefer not to. Hello, beautiful boy. And this is exactly why I tend to stay with leopard just that little bit longer, because they're always busy, even when they wanting to be flat cats. I wonder if he's going to come and drink. But that does mean he has to go past the hyena to do so. As he comes up this way. Can you see him? It's keeping a very close watch on the hyena. But as I say, I think he is larger than the hyena. I don't know if you're going to be able to see the hyena from this angle. Yeah, you can just about see the hyena at the back there. Yeah, slowly walking towards it. And I think this is going to be a learning curve for the pair of them, because obviously he's coming up for about 2 years old. The hyena, as I say, is a juvenile. It's not sure of its... Okay. Yeah, hyena's not sure of its... There we go. Oh, thanks, RC. RC. A very... Oh, there's 2 hyenas. RC is quite a big birder from the Netherlands, and he... Actually, I don't know if RC is a he or a she, but RC agrees. It was a tawny flank prunier. Thanks for the confirmation, RC. Appreciate that. But yeah, hopefully you can actually see this is definitely a youngster. Abilities, that's the word I'm looking for. It's not sure of its abilities yet. And looks like there's another youngster as well. And we've got the greeting there going on. Okay, so the one that actually turned... So the one that we've actually been watching, you see slightly younger and is lower ranking, because it put its head down first to go and smell the genitalia, and that's the way that they greet each other, and that's how we can tell who's subordinate and who is dominant. So this animal, you can see walking behind the animal that's just come in now, so it's definitely a lower ranking to the animal that's just arrived. Now I wonder with the pair of them, they might just get a little bit more confident. But now looking at it with this individual, again you can see the ears are all nice and clean, there's very little scratches on the face, so they are still fairly young, but I'd say maybe this one is slightly older. Size wise it is slightly taller and not as fluffy as the other one. I think maybe the other one is about 3, this one could be about 4. It's just arrived. But I wonder if it's going to take the lead. Now the quarantine male did lie down just out of sight behind the bush there. Harded-out ibis calling, possibly because it's seeing the hyenas now. Yeah, affirmative. Obviously deciding that they're not a match for the quarantine leopard. Good morning, go ahead. Affirmative, and we got 2 in BC here as well. Yeah, there's space, more than welcome. How's this morning? I hope you're enjoying it wherever you are in the world. 2 spotted hyena trying to work out how they're going to get some food from a leopard who's quite a bit taller than they are. And you can see they just lack that confidence that the species in general have, just because they are just that little bit young and they're still working out life and the ranking of their species, I think. But I think if we had a couple of seasoned adults with us, this story would have been very different. Oh, fantastic. Just heard that it sounds like it could possibly be Karula on the southern side of quarantine. So I'm just going to see if we can get another view of this male. But as I say, I think he's still got a little bit of food left. And there is water here, so I think he probably will stick around if those hyenas do make it down there. I think actually gone down into the drainage line and moving away, but oh, rubbish there.
Right.
Oh, is it going? Oh, there we go. So I don't think he's going to move any time soon from this location. There we go. Back into the safety of the tree just to make sure. Oh, they have gone down to him. Good morning to you, Diane, and welcome on board this morning. And I'm amazed at these two little hyenas. I'm so chuffed for them. But they are starting to discover who they are. But I'm amazed that the quarantine male didn't put up more of a fight. But as I say, this is a learning curve for both the young hyenas and the quarantine male, because they are both young and they've got to work out where they rank in this world, and a lot of it's got to do with attitude. And again, I think he's just got to learn that he's a lot larger than these two. And this is the problem, and I think, it depends on what side of the fence you're on. But he's had quite a big meal already. He's had a lot to eat. So, I think for them just to have a little bit is not a bad thing. And he still has some of the meat left in the tree. And judging by the look of him, he is certainly doing well for himself. He is in tip-top condition. And you'd like to know if what we're seeing here will form part of my research for my PhD, and at this point, no. But what you might not be aware, but we did actually managed to get a paper written about the interactions of Karula and her family, because the academic world just does not know about it. It really is amazing that no one else has written about the interactions. And we've really made history here with WildEarth because of what we witnessed. And going into Zoom a PhD, I could write this paper. And I actually did my PhD through the University of Reading, and my professor was actually on board, who helped me write it yesterday with my fellow PhD candidates. And Becky Thomas as well. She also helped me to write that paper, and Mark Fellows, who's my supervisor, so we could actually get that story out there, and without their help I couldn't have done it. But it was accepted by a journal, and what was really interesting is there's been people asking for the paper, and they've actually started seeing this behaviour in Namibia. They're starting to document it, and it has happened throughout the Sabi Sands. There has been a number of cases where family have been interacting, and I wonder if it is actually the normal behaviour for leopards nowadays. Now, it might be that years gone by the leopards weren't seen very often, so some of it was documented, but not nearly as much now. And I think with obviously the media opening up, the social media, there's a lot more interactions, obviously more people going on safari, they can afford to go to safari, so there's a lot of pictures around, there's the blogs as well on the internet, there's so much information nowadays. So it could be this behaviour was happening years ago, but it just wasn't documented. It could be that the leopards were so used to being hunted that they remained so elusive, and that's why it's very special here in the Sabi Sands. There hasn't been any hunting for a good few decades, and that's why we can get to see these animals so closely, because they don't know what a gun is. There's no memory of hunting here, which is fantastic, because they're nice and safe. And they've got nothing to fear. They can just live their lives, interact as they do. Or it could be that they have adapted. Now, it could be that there's a high density of leopards here in the Sabi Sands. In our 1,000 hectares that we traverse, we have seen, certainly in the couple of years previously I was driving for WildEarth, we counted I think 11 leopards utilising this property, and that was without the ones that weren't seen. It could have been 12 actually, with that last unknown male coming through and interacting with Shivambalana. But as I say, unfortunately this is the way of things. The hyenas. Oh. Sorry, I was just getting an update on Karula. Who was from Tennessee? Kathy! Welcome on board, Kathy. And just getting an update on Karula. It sounds like they have just lost visual of her. She went east. So if they were just on the southern side of quarantine, she's gone into that block between Gowrie Dam, Twin Dams Road, so she could be heading this way. We're still quite away from them. I was actually going to say, while he was lying up there and I thought the hyenas were disappearing, that we were going to see if we could catch up with her, but it's certainly quite interesting to see the interaction going on here. But Kathy from Tennessee wanting to know if the leopard will actually see the hyena as a potential food source or a competitor, and they are competitors. You don't really hear of leopard killing hyena, unless they're very young. Leopards, if they do come across baby hyena, would be likely to kill them. And it's the same for the hyenas as well. And unfortunately, Karula did lose one of her previous cubs from this litter that she's just had now. Oh, there's a nice leg there. Let me just see if I can pull forward slightly. Still get a clear view of the quarantine male there as well. No, okay. Okay, I might have to move. There's another vehicle coming in. So if I could maybe move and we can get a view through where we had, then the other vehicle can pull in here. Just so we don't lose a view, just in case anything does happen. Can you see them nicely through there? Yeah, just there. But as I say, I've actually seen, when there's no food involved, I have actually seen Mishu. He was one of Kruder's cubs from her second litter, probably about the same age as Quarantine Male now, sitting on a log, and the hyenas walked up, and it was actually an adult hyena. I think it was Floppy Ear. She was the matriarch of the clan. I don't know if she's still around. I don't know if she's still the clan leader. But he sat on the log and he stood his ground, and she came right up to him, and they were almost like a metre away from each other. I thought they were going to touch noses at one stage. And they just looked at each other, and then she walked off, and he just remained on the log. But as soon as there is food involved, they are enemies. And as I say, it could be that this little guy has had experiences with hyenas, but I actually thought he was going to stand his ground, because he knew the hyena was there. The hyena was on the bank, he was in the drainage line lying down, and he actually lay down. So I actually thought he was going to stand his ground, but I think it's because this little one was unsure of itself. And I think he picked up on that. But as soon as the second one came, there's two of them. And that's when, the odds start changing. So even though he is larger than them, and even I think if he had the attitude, he could possibly chase them off. But I think because there's the two of them, he's slightly more intimidated now. And what they're going to be learning from this is that leopards are scared of them. And as I say, this is going to be a big learning curve for them. Now, if he actually did come down and start chasing them off, showing his teeth and be a little bit more aggressive, they would then take that and be maybe a little bit more wary of leopard in future. Go ahead. It's been 5 out of 5. Are you still approaching? Go up, no problem. Good morning to you, Chris from California. Chris wanting to know, can you ID the hyenas by their spots? And I'm sure it is possible, and I'm sure there has been researchers on spotted hyenas, and that is one way that they use to tell the difference between the animals, and then the notches that they pick up from fighting in the ears, and the marks. Yeah, the hyena's just below him. Are you still able to see where the hyena is? Or do I need to move forward again? So that vehicle is actually still a little bit of a way off. I thought they were approaching, but we still have the ability to move around where we want to get the best view. And literally anything that has some form of coat pattern is unique to that animal. So kudu, you can actually tell individual kudu apart from their stripes. Zebra, the giraffes with their spot pattern, and that's how we tell the leopards apart as well. And as I say, it is such a thrill to see the leopards and to look at their faces, because I use camera traps up in the area that I operate to try and locate my leopards. I very rarely see my leopards because they still live where they can potentially be hunted. So quite often I get the back end of the leopard rather than the front end. And it's quite funny because the inside and the outside of the legs as well is how I quite often identify the leopards from the camera trap images, especially the night images. They just move that a little bit too fast to get the really nice shots unless they stand still in front of the camera. So spotted hyenas, it is possible. So even Nyala and bushbuck, the ones that have the spots and stripes, they can also be identified. I think they were using spot identification patterns for whale sharks. So it's not just land mammals. And even brown hyenas have stripes on the legs, and I know a lady that is doing research on brown hyenas, also using camera traps, and she's identifying them through the notches in the ears, the scars on the face, and the stripes on the leg. So part of me really wishes that he had put up more of a fight. But I am also very, very chuffed that these two have actually found a meal. The patience paid off. With them being young animals as well, they're just learning constantly. But it would be nice to maybe change the balance a little bit. As I say, if he had put up more of a fight, the hyenas might be a little bit wary next time. Kathleen, welcome on board. And I just missed which falls you're from, but welcome on board. And Kathleen would like to know how old a hyena would be before it's an adult. And females tend to mature faster than Klamath Falls. Thank you, Klamath Falls. And females do mature much faster than males. Oh, there's a woodlands kingfisher that's just flown in just onto the branch opposite the quarantine male. If you follow this branch that he's sitting on, he's sitting right on the end of the other side. Yeah, just there. The woodlands kingfisher checking things out. So females mature roughly around 2 years old. Males maybe about 3 years old. But they'll tend to go or leave the communal dens when they're about a year, just over a year old, to go and start hunting with the female. So it's actually quite a long period of time before they're fully weaned. It's usually about 1.5 years before they're fully weaned. And as I say, the females about 2 years old. That's what makes me think this one is still having that doubt. So maybe it's slightly younger than 3. It could even be about 2.5, 3. But if it's a male, that could also account for it being. But I still think it is a 3-year-old. But males aren't as aggressive as females. The females have a lot of testosterone in their bodies, so they're much bigger than males. And they tend to be a lot more bolder than the males, the females. And it could be that other adult that came in was actually a female, and that could account for the smaller one that we were watching to begin with was submissive towards it. And you can see that other animal didn't even bother smelling the first hyena that we were with. Yeah, morning, go ahead. You're more than welcome. I'm on that 2-track. I'm on the 2-track from Mvubu. Oh, sorry, radio's cutting out. 2-track from Mvubu. You're welcome to. Because that first hyena was certainly submissive to that second hyena, without a doubt. And the hyenas are very intelligent, and they've actually found there was a group of captive hyenas, and they tested their intelligence and their ability to work together. And they actually had the hyenas in a room, and one hyena had to put its foot on a plate. They had to push this plate down, and the other hyena had to pull a piece of string. Now, they could only get the piece of food if both of them did it simultaneously, and one animal couldn't do both. So it didn't take them too long to work this out. So the one had to push the plate and the other one had to pull the string. And what was really interesting, when they swapped the members around, the dominant animal would actually be allowed to be taught by a subordinate who knew how to get to the food. And that was quite amazing, because, say, the hyenas can be quite aggressive, they can be quite dominating towards the subordinates. But the fact that the more dominant animal would actually step back and be taught by the subordinate really says something about the intelligence of the animal. And I think that's one of the reasons why they are so adaptable, and that they are so widespread as well. Obviously the quarantine male can still see them. You can see he's panting because he's actually been feeding, so his body temperature's going to start rising, and the temperature is starting to increase, but he does have quite a nice shady spot here. But certainly a great way to start your day or end your day wherever you are in the world, to witness the interactions between a wild leopard and wild spotted hyena.